All right, boys, another Tea Talks. I wanted to talk about a little bit of something, okay? I wanted to talk a little bit about what it feels like when you're finally in a position where, you've gained a little bit more muscle mass, especially as a skinny guy. A lot of you might know my story. I was a very skinny, unconfident guy back in high school, and I felt like I was on autopilot all the time. And I just wanted to be like any other high school guy, just a popular kid, wanted to be a lot more confident, probably a lot more jacked so that I could, attract any of the women that I wanted to, stuff like that. You know what I mean? Casual high school kid stuff. And I remember that back then I would get a lot of shit for being skinny. Okay? And that's part of the reason why I was very unconfident with the way I was. You know what I mean? You need to put some, some meat on those bones, or, always feeling like it was almost like a, how would I say it? A physical manifestation of how my mentality was in and of itself. I was scrawny and skinny, a lot like the way I felt in terms of how I could assert myself, which was basically not at all. You know what I mean? I couldn't assert myself. And because of that, you get taken advantage of a lot. And and something you'll realize is that a lot of that was not just the other people's fault, because then you quickly fall into a victim mindset of I was subjected to this, but you'll quickly realize that a lot of it was also your fault, because what you could have done in that scenario was back away. But back then, when you're unconfident, when you don't have a lot going for you, when you're skinny, when you realize the reality of the world, which is, you just won't get treated as well as people who are better off in a lot of cases, whether that be financially, whether that be they look better, whether that be, they're bigger. And that's something a lot of people don't admit, and which is why it saddens me sometimes when I see some women that hype up some of their big friends, some of the girls that are bigger in their group chat, telling them, oh, you look perfect, you look fine the way they are, when in their mind they're like, she's not going to be competing with me for the same kind of, men or anything like that. Or when men do that, to other men sometimes, which I wouldn't expect as much to happen, but it still does. You lie to your homies, you say, oh no, it's fine that you don't do this or whatever. But it's like, that's what I hated. It felt like anytime I went around, you hear one thing from people because they're trying to be nice to you, but what ends up happening is people treat you a completely different way, like you're invisible, like you're not there. You know what I mean? I remember all the time people telling me, some of my friends telling me I was fine the way they were. And to their credit, at least they were trying to be less of a dick to me, okay? But in that moment, I didn't realize that, they're also not telling me the truth, which is that, yeah, I could probably be in a lot more better shape. I could probably be a lot more confident that I'm on autopilot, but I didn't have people like that around me. And again, I realized that a lot of that was my fault, and that's hard to admit. You know what I mean? I completely get it. You're in a scenario where you feel like, damn, like everything's against me and nothing's going for me. I don't feel attractive enough for that girl to approach her, and by the time I do, she talks to some other guy and gets into a relationship. I don't feel like my friendships are enough, and some of my friends are leaving me. I remember, dude, like I had times where this girl that I was into literally looked at me from the lunch table that she was eating at, looked at me and started laughing. It was ridiculous. Like, my heart sank in that moment. I had friends that when I would hop onto the game, they would, and by the way, I was a hardcore Overwatch player, so just so y'all know what game I was playing, you know what I mean? Ranked, competitive matches, you need to be within a certain rank to be able to play. When I'd hop on, they almost acted like they never knew me because they just wanted to play in a higher rank. So people do treat you better off these little things. Whether it was that girl because she thought I was unconfident, skinny, or whatever it was, which I'm not saying is a bad thing. It's just the decision that she chose or whatever. And then people, some of your friends that are friends will, off of shit that is digital, like a literal rank in a video game. This is pixels we're talking about, that they will, completely look you over. But once you're at school, they want to talk to you about all their problems. They want to talk to you about all these things. But once it was your time to talk, you never got that attention. You know what I mean? So that was a very tough reality for me to realize that, you have to grow into yourself, and you have to learn to stand up for yourself. And I know a lot of people just say that, and they don't tell you anything else. But what I'll tell you is, from what I know, which is not completely everything about the world, but from the little that I've learned, it's that when I started getting into the gym, people did treat me better. Literally, one of the friends of the girls that looked at me and laughed at one day, she pulled up to the same gym that I was working at years later and literally told me to my face that I'm looking a lot better, that I look good, while she literally smiled at me, you know what I mean? And I get it, a lot of you might be like, oh, you shouldn't seek for that validation, stuff like that, but I'm using that as an example to tell you, look, this is real. You get better, people treat you better. And that's the reality I want you to understand, that if you're not in a situation where, if you're in that exact situation where you feel like people tell you one thing, but you're treated another way completely, I'm just gonna break it to you and be honest. You need to learn, you need to find a way to be able to improve yourself. And the personal method that I will tell you is starting into the gym, even if it is for superficial motivations or whatever it might be. Just starting and lifting. Because what you'll soon realize, which was a very important lesson I learned, was that as you start growing your muscle mass, you will also learn to grow into yourself as a person. You will start to choose the styles for yourself. And guess what? People will still give you shit to this day, especially once you grow into yourself. But guess what? I'd rather be this guy that feels a lot more confident about himself, that feels a lot better about himself, that is now jacked, that might have that long hair, that might wear those rings, that might pursue a career that many men don't want to pursue, especially within the Muslim community, because the uncles think that the market does not offer a lot for it, and because they want you to be a lawyer, engineer, whatever it may be. I feel a lot better about being this version of myself and knowing that I could die anytime being me than I do about letting a lot of the versions of me that they think about, that they want me to be, prevail, or whatever it may be. I feel much better being myself, and it's almost like a sense of not outward just defiance, because I think sometimes, defiance can come a lot from immaturity, just because you want to, be different or whatever. But it's more of a graceful defiance, I guess you could put it. It's not exactly something I can articulate into words, but the point I'm trying to get across is, it's better to be in a position where you feel a lot more like yourself and you grew into yourself, because guess what? Reality check, you're still gonna hear shit for it. Do you know how much shit I get for tracking my food sometimes? But guess what? I'm in better shape than most of the people that talk shit to me about. You know what I mean? A lot of that hate comes from below. It's real. And you'll get side comments that, people are very smart to just sort of disguise and humor, but it's real. There's that genuine animosity, and that's something I only know because I came from that place of not being enough, not feeling like everything was literally handed to me. I had to build a lot of my physique up. I had to build a lot of my confidence up. And I didn't necessarily have anybody in my family that pushed me to do that. If anything, real, anytime I tried to make a decision that was good for myself, it would just be shut down. Why am I going to the gym so late? Why am I doing that? Why am I putting my body through this? You know? And now I'm in the best shape of my life, feel the best I've ever had. I don't tolerate bullshit like I used to. I remember times where I would get, you know, although I'm Muslim, I'm just gonna keep it real with you. You know what I mean? I was still a kid, I was still a guy, and yeah, sure, I probably let my instincts get to me. But there was times where I'd want to go on dates with certain girls, and I remember getting stood up, and I'd still go back and text these same people. I'm giving you that same example of, you know, getting treated like shit. But at that time, I was okay with it. At that time, I was so hungry that I was desperate enough to eat off of someone else's plate. And now, I don't feel that way. I feel pretty satiated. And that's because I learned to grow into myself and make connections with people that were genuine, which is how I'm able to now eat out of my own plate, you know what I mean? And feel satiated because I know I have those people and those people are enough for me. But I won't lie, even from time to time now, even here and then, I get kind of hungry and I'm looking at someone else's plate and I'm thinking, damn, that looks good. That feeling never really stops, even if it does get better. But except now, I have a brotherhood and my new standards to keep me in check. If I see the slightest hint of someone not being serious about a relationship, done, gone, finito, because my peace matters to me. I set that standard for myself. So again, I know I'm bouncing around a lot of topics here, but I'm just telling you that no matter how you are going to get shit for it, so you'd rather be yourself than try to be someone you're not or something you're not to try to impress these people. Because guess what? I was that kid. I was the good boy. I was the good brown kid who got the good grades, you know, and I still do to this day. And I didn't feel like myself. Now, I'm not saying the grades were the reason that I didn't feel like myself. It was just like I was obedient in everything, you know? And again, I'm not saying be defiant in a way that's rebellious or hurts anybody, but you gotta learn to lean into yourself a little bit more. I get shit every day for my hair, every single day, bro, every single day, without fail. I remember I had girls back in college tell me, oh, why don't you just get a mullet or perm your hair like every other brown guy does? You know what I mean? Try not to throw shade, but like, I'm just keeping it honest, all right? I'm just being real. And not that there's anything wrong with having that haircut or anything like that, but I guess that's also a testament to show you that a lot of you are still following these things that people tell you to do, just because, you know, you want to align with the standards. And when you say it out loud, it sounds stupid. You're like, no, I'm not trying to do that. But then every aspect or personality of your character is starting to align with that. You know what I mean? And you're really afraid to be yourself. Now, of course, I try to do this within the confines of Islam because that's my moral compass and things of that nature. So I'm not going to go to the extent of, you know, being myself and, you know, start an OnlyFans or some shit. You know what I mean? That would never happen. But again, little things that aren't going to hurt someone, especially within that moral confine, I think is fine. Like, for example, our Prophet, peace be upon him, he had longer hair. So anytime I go around some of these uncles and they criticize me for it, I just smile. Because I know they're bald and I'm not yet. You know what I mean? And again, I'm just making some fun out of the situation, but real, you will still get a lot of shit for being the way that you are, even once you get into fitness. And I'm here, and I'm the guy who's the fitness coach that, you know, has a program to be able to sell to you. But I'm telling you that fitness does not solve everything. But guess what? It's a start. It's a start. And I'll take that start over everything else, especially if it helps me grow muscle. And because it's helping me grow muscle, or I shouldn't say because it's helping me grow muscle, but it also helps you grow into yourself, which is something you won't see because it's happening in here and in here. You only see the physical. You only see the YouTube thumbnails and the Instagram pictures of the transfer. Wow. Camera fell, boys. I guess you get to see a little bit of a different view. Let me fix that. But yeah, you only get to see the skinny guy, you know, that transformed from being small to big, but you don't see what transformed me mentally, spiritually, and to be able to have the confidence to be myself now and realize that I don't have to be what they tell me that I have to be. I can just be myself, and that's good enough. You know what I mean? Hopefully the camera doesn't fall again, but yeah, that's pretty much all I wanted to say. I'll probably end it off here because it's getting real windy. Start lifting if you haven't already. It's going to help you tremendously. And you'll only get the benefits of what I'm talking about once you actually put yourself through that scenario. And if you're confused on how to start, look at some of my older videos, okay? Look at like some of the previous ones that talk about, oh, if you're skinny, this is how you bulk up. If you're skinny, this is kind of the workout routine you can do. Stuff like that. And that'll help you grow more into yourself. You'll feel a lot more confident because you feel good, you look good. And you'll start to develop these characteristics that no one really talks about. The gym is not just a superficial thing. You only might think that way, and I can't blame you because, again, that's all you see on Instagram is people flexing left and right. But you wonder why I don't just post about me flexing all the time. I show my progress because, yeah, I'm trying to run a business. But at the end of the day, that's not the only thing that you get out of being physically fit. It is not. So when people tell me it's vanity, to some degree, I can't blame them because that's all they see. You know, they see the top 1% physiques, which I'm not even going to argue that I have, but that's the thing. See, that's how I know. I've grown into myself and realized I don't have to be the most jacked guy in the room to talk about fitness because it helped me, and it'd be a disservice not to talk about how it can help you. Does that make sense? So yeah, enough of my blabbering. That's pretty much all my TED Talk for today. Grow muscle mass and watch yourself grow into yourself. And I'm serious. And you'll start to realize and be disgusted with the amount of shit that you used to tolerate and that you're not going to tolerate anymore. But again, let it be graceful. Don't have this sense of defiance where you think everything is wrong and everything is bad and, you know, start to gain a victim mentality like my younger self did, that all of this was subjected upon me and I didn't control it. Because the real wisdom is realizing that you were actually, even though it might not have been 100% your fault, you were still a factor in that equation, which means that if you can change yourself, you can change the answer to that equation. Does that make sense? Think of it like math. The systems of equation shit that they used to teach you in math that you really barely don't use anymore. Yeah, I just made an analogy out of it. Use that, you know what I mean? If you stay X and get into the same situation Y, you're gonna get the same answer every single time without fail. So you need to change the X, become something else. And then you'll change the answer to the equation. But yeah, that's pretty much all I got. Take it easy. I'll see y'all in the next Tea Talks, all right? And comment down below if you want to see more Tea Talks and stuff like this, where I talk about fitness, but more specifically how other parts mentally, spiritually, and all these other things relate to fitness. Because they are so important, yet so not talked about. But yeah, I'll see y'all. I'm going to just enjoy the wind and the view for now. Peace.